We'll start out by saying that there are two ways of perceiving reality, of perceiving the world. Yeah. Through your personal feelings and intellect, a person as an individual being who perceives things, this world, through his five senses and the environment. That, from what I understand from the wisdom of Kabbalah, that's already close to Kabbalah, meaning that when a person observes the world through the people surrounding him. Of course, we yet need to understand what that means. And today we'll go over these two types of perception of the world. From what I understand from Kabbalah, it is impossible to explore the Creator, which is the purpose of man in this world, through your personal feelings, through your ordinary five senses, but only through society. That society is like a rifle scope through which I look at the Creator. I can't see Him directly, but if I look through society, if I learn how to do it, then I can clearly define who is the Creator. The thing is that we need to defocus our vision. Vision is roughly put our feelings, meaning right now they're focused, subordinated to our egoistic fulfillment, and thus we don't feel the Creator. So we need to look at the world through altruistic eyes, meaning through the quality of bestowal. How to put this? Suppose the entire world is my little baby that I'm really crazy about. How would I then look at the entire world? Really love-stricken. That's A. Now B, that's not enough, because then I would have looked at him egoistically. And we need to look at him altruistically, in love, meaning as if completely independent of myself. Imagine then, instead of your own child, which takes up your entire world, suppose, a stranger's child, or even better, the one that you hate the most, and you need to defocus yourself in such a way, detach yourself from your ego, from your egoistic observation of the world through this prism that inverts you completely inside out, and then through it you will see the Creator. Okay, that's clear, but it is against our nature, as Bala Sulam writes, that the nature of each and every person is to exploit the lives of all other people in the world for his own benefit, and all that he gives to another is only out of necessity. Even then there is exploitation of others in it, but it's done cunningly so his friend will not notice it and concede willingly. So it's against our nature, what Kabbalah says. Of course it is. So what's this entire game for? The Creator nature made us so that we see only negative qualities and even others through this egoistic prism. And you're saying that we need to invert this prism to see this world as if undistorted by your own ego. Right. The Creator, He created us actually in wholeness and completion, the so-called Garden of Eden. And afterwards, we fell to the opposite degree, to our world, which is the complete opposite. And now, from our world, to spiritually ascend to our initial degree. What is it all for? In order to develop ourselves, in order to acknowledge each and every particle, element of our consciousness, feelings, attitude, relation towards the whole of creation that is actually called Creator. And then we will become like Him, similar to Him, and to become similar to Him is the purpose of our development. And it has to happen strictly with our participation. Otherwise, just like we were animals, we'll remain animals without understanding where and for what purpose do we exist. So Bala Sulam continues and says, man feels that all the people in the world should be under his own governance and for his own private benefit. This is an unbreakable law. The only difference is in people's choices. One chooses to exploit people by obtaining lowly lusts, and one by obtaining governance, while the third by obtaining respect. Furthermore, if one could do it without much effort, he would agree to exploit the world with all three together. Right. Now we would like to examine how Kabbalah offers, through the means of society, by changing society like we spoke about on our previous lesson, to change one's worldview from an egocentric one, which is one's innate nature, to an altruistic one that the Creator requires. So now we'll go over several principles of how to build such an environment. As we said that if I'm brought to an environment, that's not yet freedom of choice. The freedom begins when I'm already in that society and begin to consciously develop there, opposite to our innate nature. So we'll go over several principles, and we'd ask you to explain. The first is, spiritual advancement is possible only in a collective. Right? Because I need to replace myself for the collective. Even though that the initial phase, the introduction phase in Kabbalah, is something that you can go through by yourself. Of course, in the beginning, no problem. It's a lengthy path, and the first stage is an introductory phase where I really don't know where I came to, why, what for, what do I need here, what can it give me, meaning a person can cook in that for several years until he eventually acknowledges. He can talk, he can hear as if hear, but the coin doesn't drop like you throw a coin into a machine, and only then, when it already clicks and the mechanism starts working, it takes some time. So you can drop that penny into your machine, but you'll start understanding maybe how you're supposed to work with that machine, to push buttons, etc., meaning very clearly, consciously to interact with it, meaning with yourself, with your nature and the nature of the surrounding world. For this, many years need to go by. So, a required condition for spiritual development is a group of like-minded people, which is like a laboratory in which each person who wishes to spiritually develop can practically examine his attitude toward others, his relation to them. And the question is, each of us lives in a big broad world. He has a family, work, friends. Why is it not enough to be in that environment and examine your relation towards simply people? Why do these people necessarily have to be like-minded people that study with you? Because all of us together need to be directed toward the same goal. We need to dissolve ourselves in the society in order to reject our sense of self, and instead of it, to accept the influence of society, the rule of society over myself. Yeah, but I change my attitude. What do I care how they treat me? I relate to them and try to change my attitude. Who will you learn from if not from them? So I need examples. And not only, you simply need to take and form yourself, mold yourself under the surrounding environment that you yourself consciously choose. You need to enter that little society, that 10 small group, and completely subordinate yourself to it, meaning to defeat your ego in such a way that you're completely subordinated to them and they can rule over you, and you do it consciously, wanting for them to control you. What you're saying sounds horrific. What, in relation to the goal? Yeah, in order to attain the goal. What does it mean that they need to rule over me? Meaning their aspiration for the goal, their advancement towards the goal needs to prevail over your some personal thoughts and awakenings. So we're not talking about some material desires, but only in relation to the goal. Of course. Next principle is group study, a very important condition, without which all the study merely comes down to mechanical memorization of terms. Right, because you need to educate yourself, remake yourself with the help of a special force, a special quality called the higher force, the higher light, surrounding light. You need to draw it upon yourself so it'll influence you correctly, change you, turn you into a spiritual being. Spiritual meaning that it will change your qualities from receiving corporeal qualities into spiritual qualities of bestowal. In order to do that, in order to draw upon yourself the surrounding light that will change you, correct you, that will practically invert you, instead of receiving, bestowing, instead of hating, loving, etc. You need to be for that under a serious influence of the surrounding group. Furthermore, you need to personally, by your own efforts, to put yourself under that influence, to drag yourself by the ear to that group. You need, in all, by all possible means, to make it so that you will be in that group under their influence, that they will control you, mold you. Like you make some kind of form of a bun out of dough and then you bake it, that they'll do the same to you, the form that they want. So it doesn't happen naturally, automatically, only through your own efforts. Meaning I need to want it myself. You don't want it, but you want for them to do it on you. So, no need to worry. A person needs to apply much effort in order for such an environment to work on him. He needs to make it so that the environment will reign over him. And if we take any other egoistic environment, then it simply automatically works on me. Of course, even without making an effort. Sure, many times I go in and out of different environments, at work, someplace, in other societies, etc. So it's like a consumer society where you go into this giant shopping center and everyone's buying all the time and it automatically works on you. Right? Meaning I don't need to make an effort. Right, because your ego is given to you initially. It works in you automatically. And thus, you use it in a so-called natural way. However, to acquire a completely different, anti-egoistic quality, for this you need to make an effort. So we're talking about acquiring the quality of the Creator. In order to do that, I need to enter a society that cultivates that quality. In order for them to give me the importance of that quality, I need to really exert myself. You need to put yourself under their influence. That's the only way. And I want to get from them specifically that quality. Everything else, we don't talk about it, we don't touch it. No, their other different qualities don't interest me. What interests me is their relation to the goal. So, actually, for example, I respect a healthy lifestyle, and I want to cultivate it. And, naturally, I'll choose an environment of non-Kabbalists, but of other people. And in parallel to that, I'm also interested in revealing the quality of the Creator. And in parallel to that, I can be in this Kabbalistic environment, and I want for them to influence me, specifically that they'll give me the importance for that quality. And the rest of the things that I want in this world, I'll go to another society, environment. In general, yes. Also, Bala Sulam writes that it's necessary to cautiously treat the personality of each friend in that group of like-minded people for their personality not to go to waste. Right, meaning that we don't break him, we only show him the goal, we inspire him. But he needs to develop according to his inner givens. Suppose I have 5 children. One of them for sure can be a musician, another one a writer, another one an architect, another one a gardener, etc., etc. So I want to give each of them the suitable education, meaning to put each of them in an environment that is suitable to them. So through each friend, I see the special expression of the Creator or the influence of the Creator over me. Right. And therefore, I want for that influence to be kept preserved. Next principle, if a person has a clear opinion, but he doesn't speak it out, and that's considered stealing. Right, necessarily in the group where we support one another and wish to reach a mutual connection, such a connection in which we'll start recognizing, feeling the Creator, we needn't hide our intentions, feelings. To the contrary, we need to set an example. Meaning, the best means to inspire the friend, meaning to cultivate in them the importance of the goal, is to show a personal example. Right. Meaning, it's not talk, it's not thoughts. Talk and thoughts too. But the example is very important, because I can see the example. I don't see another person's thoughts. Each time to choose a better environment means to see the friends more corrected than what the ego shows me. That's the next principle. Of course, I don't change. I don't jump from place to place. I each time need to raise the degree of those friends in my eyes. Is that possible? Every time I begin to appreciate them on a higher level, that they are constantly growing in my eyes, and that depends only on me and not on them. Next principle. It is forbidden to discuss the spiritual condition of the friend, but only, or spiritual state, but only his external actions. We don't know what the spiritual state of the friend is. We need to only more or less see what's going on with him, and to help each friend to be in the most awakened possible state. Meaning, I can't criticize him, say that he's in a descent. No. We can do it only indirectly through the group, all the group together. We can elevate, we can rise, and then we'll raise him as well. Next principle, it's necessary to show the friend that the good attitude toward him, the care for him, is a result of the greatness, importance of the goal. Right, otherwise we wouldn't have related to him. Only since we wish to attain the Creator, therefore we're willing to love one another. Meaning, aspiring to reveal the Creator is what defines our love and kind attitude toward one another, care for each other, only that, and not because we appreciate each other on the corporeal level according to different parameters. That's really of no interest to us. Meaning, the goal defines everything that happens with us. So it's important for me to show the friend that I care for him only because there's the goal. Right. Next, it's important to raise the friend's mood even artificially. Of course. It doesn't matter how do I raise their mood. The main thing is that the friend will feel that he's inspired, that he is optimistic, that he understands and knows what's up ahead, how clearly he aspires for the goal, etc. Oriented toward the goal. Meaning, it's very important to me. It doesn't matter how I awaken that in him. It's called to deliver a friend, to get a friend out of jail, out of prison. Another principle, Rabash, your teacher, writes about it, that in the group it's important to care for the general atmosphere of the importance of the goal, and not to, express my emotions towards each friend in the group in particular, because if it's a large group, then it's impossible. Right, the general state of the 10. One more parameter in spiritual development, the lesson. We talked about the three factors of a person's spiritual development: the teacher, the group, and the source texts. We'll talk about the teacher separately, the group we understood, all the different principles of the interactions between us. We briefly went over it. Obviously, we have courses where we need to more elaborately and practically go over all of these things. It's not theory. Now, about the lessons, there's a part to the lesson called the preparation for the lesson, if you can say a few words about that. Individual preparation, mutual preparation. What is it? What does it give us? Preparation for the lesson is, well, first of all, we need to say about the lesson itself. The lesson is like a meeting with the Creator, where the entire small group gets together. It could be many small groups, but usually a small group is 10 people. That's the optimum number of people. And they study under the guidance of a teacher. You can say instructor, that clearly guides them toward the goal, according to a certain plan. That plan actually depends on the state of the group, its development, but at the same time, it's also defined by the state of the world, surrounding environment that they're in, the country that they're in, etc. Meaning, they're studying the practical implementation of the forces of nature in order to bring to their own elevation, followed by the whole of humanity, to the degree of the Creator. And thus, they need to take into consideration everything that happens with them and the surrounding world. All that is done by the instructor, the teacher. And the students, maybe they don't understand it, but they need to follow what he does. He can consult them, explain to them what and how, but actually, he's responsible for the educational process. So it's a central point, the lesson itself. The central point is a lesson that is directed toward taking another step toward the higher goal, which is adhesion with the Creator. On the other hand, we say that the lesson is a result of my preparation during the day, meaning during the day I prepare myself for the lesson, and it's a result of how I prepared myself. Right. Meaning I need to come to the lesson already with some kind of chisaron, with a desire to be corrected. I need to understand what do I need to correct, what measure of correction, and And we say that throughout the lesson, throughout the day, we can read different excerpts, we can watch movies, listen to the previous lessons again. All that is considered preparation. Now, what other interaction needs there to be with other like-minded people in the group, other members in the group during the day? They need to be in contact with one another, at least from time to time, to call one another, talk to each other, maybe meet in the evening, text each other after work. They need to do it somehow. Maybe meet before the lesson, 15 minutes, 30 minutes before the lesson, or to prepare for the lesson. What does a person need to come to the lesson with? He needs to sit with what? You're saying that there needs to be some kind of a pragmatic demand, like, how do you come to that demand? I need to demand correction. I want the quality of bestowal. And if a person comes to the lesson and he doesn't have it, he just came to the lesson and he's empty, it means that he didn't prepare himself. It means that he did not become included in advance in the group. It doesn't matter that he was empty. He was empty, that's correct. Becoming empty is something that happens to us all the time. But the question is, am I willing to fulfill this emptiness inside myself with the greatness of the friends, of the society, and through them with the greatness of the Creator? So we can't go over everything. We only have a few minutes left. So the right approach to the study, pragmatic approach, is where I come and demand for correction on the lesson, so that light, that energy that we awaken together during the lesson, that it'll change me. Through becoming included in the group, I demand, I anticipate, I aspire for the surrounding light to work on me. During the day, there are such concepts as group activities. In order to come prepared for the lesson, I need to perform certain actions. Kabbalists have several such actions. There is something like the gathering of friends, yeshivat chaverim, there are the meals, workshops during the day, congresses, meaning where together you can write a book or you go to give some lessons someplace, etc., etc. So, all of these mutual actions, they're very helpful. They're even necessary. Even if they weren't necessary, it would have been worthwhile to invent them somehow in order to somehow participate on the even day-to-day level, in order to somehow contact between yourselves. Yeah, it's necessary. Okay, we'll explore each such action separately, because Rabash, he wrote about each such action particular principles. Now, There's also talk in the group. When I'm in a group of like-minded people, there are things that we can and can't talk about. So Kabbalists say that it's forbidden to talk about your particular spiritual states, meaning I can't tell my friend how I'm revealing the Creator now, for example. Right, only about the greatness of the Creator and the greatness of the group. No personal things. There are no personal things. When we're in a group, there's nothing personal. There's one group that comprises one whole. That doesn't divide into particular entities, people, etc. I mean that it's forbidden to tell about my spiritual attainment. That's forbidden altogether, because by that a person as if catches the friend in his net and forces him to experience his own states. It's forbidden to do that. Each needs to experience his particular states personally and to receive from others only their inspiration. So we can talk only about the greatness of the goal. We can talk in the Kabbalistic language of Potsufim, Sfirot, meaning in the way that these texts are written, etc. Yeah. Also, very important, if we're already talking about a group of like-minded people, that a person needs to necessarily work. Why? Yeah, he needs to participate in the day-to-day life of our world. He needs to take interest in everything there is, because we exist in such a realm that entirely needs to rise to the level of the Creator. And thus, he needs to very clearly depict to himself, emotionally and intellectually, where he is and how does he influence himself, the world. Meaning, he needs to be a realistic person in the day-to-day life. He needs to necessarily be married, work, participating in the life of society in some way, preferably, etc. Meaning not to distance yourself, isolate yourself from anyone, anything, because precisely thanks to his connection with the environment, he influences them and hastens their correct advancement toward the Creator. So it's also a type of correction. Of course, where a person has a family, work, when he's interacted with all of humanity. Of course, we weren't artificially created this way. We were created this way, in particular, since the final state determines our current state. Because without the whole and perfect state of our connection and adhesion with the Creator in our final state, in our current state, there also wouldn't have been either this earth, our planet, our cosmic surroundings, our families, nations, nothing. It's all a result of our final state. So, we don't need to change anything, but only to aspire for a connection in which we will attain the final goal. So a person who studies Kabbalah on a certain level will feel that he needs a family. Even if he doesn't feel it, he must do what Kabbalists say if he wants to advance correctly toward the goal. He needs to work, he needs to be married. And also his actions in the group. Okay, so in 30 minutes we practically went over all the basic principles of group work, but Kabbalah is a practical science, so of course talk won't help here. These are merely words, principles, hopes, advice, points on our way, where we need to understand that we need to orient ourselves, we need to calibrate ourselves like a musical instrument in order to play out the spiritual tune. Well, there are about 20-30 of these basic principles of how to interact with the friends. I think there are less basic principles, but each of them divides into several more. And all of them eventually need to bring a person to the goal, which is adhesion with the Creator through the group. Through adhesion with people to adhesion with the Creator. From love of your fellow man to love the Creator. And the Creator, He also doesn't see us as individuals. No, doesn't see any of us in particular, but only as a whole. Doesn't see Kabbalists either. Doesn't see Kabbalists either, in any way. And Kabbalists, they nonetheless have to be included in everyone else. How does the Creator see us? The Creator is a force that unites absolutely all the seemingly dispersed parts of creation together. That force that unites and sustains this entire system is called Creator. There's this example that comes to mind. When I look at a person, I don't see his particular cells, 1 out of a billion. That's also how the Creator doesn't see us? Nope, he doesn't. So he doesn't know that there's me it doesn't matter. He sees you in particular too, but he doesn't take that into consideration. Into consideration takes only your correct participation in that general gathering of these cells. So we can say that he judges me only in relation to society, in relation to my constant investment in society. Right. Okay, thank you very much for being with us, building a spiritual environment. Till next time, all the best.